Why don't you just disappear? The words hung in the air like shattered glass. My sister Lauren stood in the center of our parents' living room, her face twisted with rage, her finger pointed at me like a weapon. I felt the weight of 3 pairs of eyes on me, hers, burning with accusation. Mom's cold and distant, Dad's avoiding mine entirely. Hi, I'm Valentina. I'm 32, a freelance graphic designer who works from a small apartment downtown. I love what I do. I love the quiet of my mornings, the satisfaction of finishing a project, the freedom of building something that's mine. But that night, that Friday night in late September, was the last time I would ever step foot in the house where I grew up. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, like the problem everyone whispers about but nobody actually sees, hit that subscribe button. I promise you, this story will give you something you need. And trust me, the truth about those 14 missed calls this morning? You won't be able to look away. Lauren's chest heaved as she stared me down. You ruined my life, Valentina. Everything that's gone wrong, it's because of you. I stood there, my coat still on, my purse hanging from my shoulder. I'd only come because Mom had texted 3 times. Family dinner. Be here at 6. No excuses. I should have known better. There's no such thing as just dinner in this house. There's always an agenda. I lost my job because of you, Lauren continued, her voice rising to a pitch that made my teeth ache. You could have helped me. You could have introduced me to your clients. But no, you're too selfish. You've always been selfish. Mom folded her arms across her chest, nodding slowly. She's right, Valentina. You only ever think about yourself. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his armchair but said nothing. That silence was somehow worse than Mom's agreement. At least with her, I knew where I stood. But Dad? He just sat there, a passive witness to my execution. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I'd learned a long time ago that words don't work in this room. Logic doesn't work. The truth definitely doesn't work. So I just said, very quietly, I'm done. And I left. I didn't slam the door, didn't yell back, just walked out into the cool autumn night, got in my car, and drove home. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, but my mind was strangely calm, clear even, like fog lifting. I didn't know then that when I woke up the next morning, my phone would be exploding with 14 missed calls. 14. All from the same 3 people who'd just told me I was the problem. But let me back up, because none of this started that night. It started 3 months earlier when Lauren called me at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Val, I need a favor. I was in the middle of a deadline, eyes burning from staring at my screen, but I answered anyway. That's what you do, right? Family calls, you answer. What's up? I need $5,000. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because the request was so absurd it didn't compute. What? I need $5,000. My rent's behind and I need to fix my car and, look, it's just temporary. I'll pay you back. Lauren had been between jobs for what she called a rough patch. That rough patch had lasted 5 years. 5 years of living at home with Mom and Dad, rent-free, while I'd been on my own since I was 23. 5 years of hearing about how hard she was trying, how the job market was brutal, how she just needed one more chance. Lauren, I don't have that kind of money to lend out right now. I'm sorry. The line went quiet for a moment. Then, you're kidding me. I'm not. I'm freelance. My income isn't steady. I can't just... You drive a decent car. You have your own place. Don't tell me you can't afford it. I can afford it because I budget, Lauren. Because I work 70-hour weeks sometimes. I'm not saying I won't help you, but $5,000 isn't... She hung up. The next day, I got a text from Mom. We need to talk about your sister. That talk turned into an hour-long lecture about family loyalty, about how Lauren was struggling and needed support, about how I'd always had it easier, always been the responsible one, and didn't I think that meant I owed something to the people who raised me? I tried to explain that I'd offered to help Lauren update her resume, to introduce her to some contacts in marketing, to go over her interview skills. that wasn't enough. What she needed was money, and I was being selfish for not providing it. Dad chimed in, "Your sister needs help, Val. This is what families do." I left that conversation feeling like I'd done something wrong, like I was the villain for having boundaries, for saying no to something I couldn't afford, emotionally or financially. 3 days later, Lauren sent me a text that made my stomach turn. "You're dead to me. You ruined my life." I blocked her number. I know that sounds harsh, but I couldn't take the constant barrage of guilt, the messages that came at all hours, blaming me for things I had no control over. So I blocked her. And then I got a call from Dad. "Your sister's really hurt, Val. She needed you and you turned your back on her." I didn't turn my back. I just can't lend her $5,000. It's not about the money. It's about showing up for family. But here's the thing. I had been showing up for years, in ways nobody seemed to count. Every month for the last 5 years, I'd been sending Mom and Dad $800. They'd asked for help with the mortgage when Dad's hours got cut, and I'd agreed. $800 every single month, 60 months. That's $48,000. Lauren? She contributed zero because she was figuring things out. But nobody mentioned that. Nobody counted the hours I spent designing flyers for Dad's church fundraisers for free. Nobody counted the weekends I drove 2 hours to help Mom set up for family gatherings I wasn't even invited to half the time. Nobody counted any of it. Because I was the responsible one. The one who had it together. The one who didn't need help. So I didn't get credit. I got expectations. And when I couldn't meet those expectations, I got blame. Thanksgiving was 3 weeks after the phone call with Dad. I showed up with a pie I'd baked from scratch, even though I wasn't sure I was welcome. The table was set for 4. There were 5 of us. My chair was missing. "Oh," Mom said lightly when she saw me looking. "We didn't think you'd come." Lauren smirked from across the room. Dad kept his eyes on the TV. I stood there holding my pie, my coat still on, and realized I was the ghost at my own family's table. Present, but not seen. Invited, but not wanted. I left the pie on the counter and walked out. Nobody followed me. That was 3 weeks before the screaming match in the living room. 3 weeks before Lauren pointed her finger at me and told me to disappear. 3 weeks before I finally stopped trying. And now it's Saturday morning, and my phone says I have 14 missed calls. All from last night after I walked out. All from the same 3 people. I haven't listened to the voicemails yet. I'm sitting here with my coffee, staring at the screen, wondering what could possibly be so urgent that they need to call me 14 times after telling me I'm the problem. But before I tell you what those calls were about, I need to show you something I found when I was packing up my things from the old house. You see, I didn't just walk out empty-handed that night. I'd left a few boxes in the attic when I moved out years ago. Old college stuff, photo albums, things I didn't have room for in my first apartment. I went back the next morning, early, when I knew they'd all be out. I had a key, though I'm sure they'll want it back now. I climbed up into the attic, dust swirling in the shafts of morning light, and started going through boxes. Most of it was junk, old textbooks, a broken printer. But then I found something that made my hands go still. A jewelry box, small, wooden, with a carved rose on the lid. I knew this box. It belonged to my grandmother. My mom's mother, who passed away 2 years ago. Grandma Rose. She was the only person in that family who ever really saw me, who listened when I talked, who told me it was okay to say no. I opened the box. Inside was a locket. Silver, delicate, old. I'd seen Grandma wear it 100 times. I lifted it out, and it fell open in my palm. On one side was a photo of me as a little girl, maybe 7 years old. Gap-toothed and grinning. On the other side was a photo of Grandma, younger, smiling the same way. And engraved across the inside of the locket, in tiny script, were 4 words, "To my brave girl." My throat tightened. I hadn't seen this locket since the funeral. I'd asked Mom about it once, asked if Grandma had left anything for me. She'd looked at me with that flat, dismissive expression and said, "She didn't leave you anything, Valentina. Don't be greedy." But here it was, hidden in a box in the attic, a box I wasn't supposed to find. I sat there on the dusty floor, holding the locket, and something inside me cracked open. Not in a broken way, in a way that let the light in. Grandma had left this for me. She'd wanted me to have it, and someone, probably Mom, had hidden it away, told me it didn't exist. I closed my hand around the locket and felt the weight of it, not heavy, just solid, real. Proof that at least one person in this family had seen me, had loved me, had thought I was worth something. I put the locket around my neck and kept digging through the box, and that's when I found the envelope. It was addressed to me in Grandma's handwriting. My name in her looping script. The envelope had never been opened, never delivered. I tore it open, my heart hammering, and pulled out a single sheet of paper. My dearest Valentina, it began. If you're reading this, I'm gone. And I'm sorry I couldn't tell you this in person, but I need you to know some things. You are not the problem. You have never been the problem. You are kind and strong and so much braver than you know. They will try to make you believe that setting boundaries is selfish. That saying no makes you unkind. Don't believe them. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to choose yourself. I'm leaving you something, my girl. Not just this locket, though. I hope you'll wear it and think of me. I'm leaving you more than that. There's a key in this box. It opens a storage unit. The address is written on the back of this letter. Go there. You'll understand. And Valentina, don't let them gaslight you. You're not crazy. You're not selfish. You're the one holding everything together, and they're terrified of what happens when you finally let go. Be brave, my girl. You deserve peace. All my love, Grandma Rose. I flipped the letter over. On the back, in faded pencil, was an address. 2247 Westbrook Road, Unit 14B. I looked back in the box. Tucked into the corner beneath some old tissues was a small brass key. I sat there for a long time, holding the letter, the locket warm against my chest. And I realized Grandma had known. She'd seen what they were doing to me, and she'd tried to give me a way out. I took the key. I took the letter. I locked the locket around my neck and climbed back down from the attic. I haven't gone to the storage unit yet. I was planning to go this weekend, but then last night happened. Then Lauren screamed at me. Then I walked out. Then this morning, 14 missed calls, and now I'm sitting here wondering, what could they possibly want? What could be so urgent that they need me, the one they told to disappear, the one they blamed for everything? Part of me doesn't want to know. Part of me wants to delete the voicemails, block their numbers, and drive to that storage unit without looking back. But part of me, the part that spent 5 years sending $800 a month, the part that baked pies for tables with no chair for me, the part that still somehow stupidly hopes, that part wants to listen. So I guess I'll find out. I'll tell you what those 14 calls were about. But first, I need to understand what Grandma was trying to tell me. I need to go to 2247 Westbrook Road. I need to see what's in Unit 14B, because I have a feeling, a cold, creeping feeling, that whatever's in that storage unit is the reason they're calling, the reason they're so desperate to reach me now, after years of making me feel like I didn't matter. Something's changed, something they didn't expect, and somehow I think Grandma knew it would. I drove to Westbrook Road that same afternoon. The storage facility was one of those sprawling complexes on the edge of town, rows of identical orange doors stretching out like dominoes. Unit 14B was in the back corner, away from the main office, tucked behind a chain-link fence. My hands were shaking as I fit the brass key into the lock. It turned smoothly, like it had been waiting for me. The door rolled up with a metallic screech, and I stepped inside. The unit was small, maybe 10 by 10, but it was packed. Cardboard boxes lined the walls, labeled in Grandma's handwriting, photos, documents, personal. And in the center of the space, on a folding table, sat a large manila envelope with my name written across the front. I picked it up. It was thick, heavy. I tore it open and pulled out the contents. The first thing I saw was a legal document. Last Will and Testament of Rosemarie Castillo, my grandmother's full name typed in official letters at the top of the page. I scanned down, my eyes catching on words that didn't make sense at first. Beneficiary, estate, assets. And then I saw it, clear as day in black and white. To my granddaughter Valentina Flores, I leave the sum of $120,000 from my personal savings, as well as the property located at 428 Maple Avenue, the family home, to be transferred into her name upon my passing. I read it again and again. $120,000. The house. Everything. My knees went weak. I sat down hard on the concrete floor, the paper trembling in my hands. Grandma had left me everything. Not split between me and Lauren, not divided among the family, just me. The date on the document was clear, signed and notarized 2 years and 3 months ago, a month before Grandma died. There was a sticky note attached to the will, written in Grandma's shaky handwriting. They will try to take this from you. Don't let them. Call Paul Navarro. He knows the truth. Clipped to the note was a business card. Paul Navarro, estate attorney. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and dialed the number. It rang 3 times before a man's voice answered. Navarro Law Office. Hi, my name is Valentina Flores. I'm calling about Valentina. His voice changed immediately, warm with recognition. I've been trying to reach you for 2 years. My stomach dropped. What? Your grandmother hired me to handle her estate. She was very specific about her wishes. I've been trying to contact you since she passed, but your family told me you'd moved out of state. They said they didn't have a forwarding address. I closed my eyes. I've been 20 miles away this whole time. I figured as much. His voice was gentle but firm. Can you come to my office? We need to talk. There are some things you need to know. I met Paul Navarro that evening at his office downtown. He was in his 50s, silver-haired, with kind eyes and a mouth set in a grim line. He had a file folder on his desk that looked about 3 inches thick. First, he said, sliding a copy of the will across the desk, this is legitimate. Your grandmother was of sound mind when she made these decisions. She knew exactly what she was doing. Why didn't anyone tell me? Paul's jaw tightened. Because your mother came to me 6 months after Rose passed. She had a document, supposedly signed by you, declining the inheritance. A notarized letter saying you didn't want the money or the property, that it should go to your sister instead. My mouth went dry. I never signed anything like that. I know. He opened the folder and pulled out a photocopy of a letter. My name was signed at the bottom in handwriting that looked almost like mine, but wasn't quite. The loops were wrong. The slant was off. I had it analyzed, Paul said. Forensic document examiner. It's a forgery. Your mother forged your signature. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the desk. She what? I confronted her about it. She claimed you'd signed it but hadn't wanted to go through the formal process, so she'd traced your signature to make it official. I didn't buy it. I've been trying to reach you ever since to verify, but every time I called your parents' house, they said you weren't available. Eventually, they told me you'd moved to Oregon. No forwarding information. I never moved. I've had the same phone number for 6 years. Paul nodded grimly. I tried looking you up online, but you're a freelancer. No public employer directory, no easy digital footprint. And frankly, I didn't have cause to file a legal complaint without evidence of fraud. Until now. He pulled out another document. This week, your parents filed a lawsuit against you. I stared at him. A lawsuit? They're claiming you embezzled funds from your grandmother's estate, that you accessed her bank accounts before she died and withdrew money without permission. They're suing you for $150,000. I couldn't breathe. That's insane. I know. I pulled your grandmother's bank records. Every withdrawal, every transaction. You never touched her accounts. But your mother did. And so did your father. He slid a printout across the desk. In the 6 months before Rose passed, there were multiple transfers out of her savings. $20,000 here, $15,000 there, always just under the reporting threshold. All of it went into your parents' joint account. I looked at the numbers, my vision blurring. They stole from her? Technically, they had power of attorney for her medical decisions, which they leveraged to access her accounts. Whether that constitutes theft is a legal gray area, but it's certainly unethical. What's not gray is this. He pulled out another document. 3 weeks ago, your parents refinanced the house your grandmother left to you. They took out a home equity loan for $80,000. How? It's not their house. Because the forged declination letter made it look like you'd refused the inheritance. They argued in probate court that since you'd declined, the estate should pass to the next of kin, your mother. The judge signed off on it. They've been living in that house, collecting rent from the tenants on the second floor, and now they've borrowed against it. I felt like I was going to be sick. Why are they suing me now? Paul's expression darkened. Because I sent them a letter last week. I told them I had reason to believe the declination was forged and that I was formally contesting the probate ruling. I requested a handwriting analysis and threatened to file fraud charges if they didn't return the estate to you. So they're trying to preemptively discredit me. Exactly. If they can make you look like the criminal, they think it'll muddy the waters enough to keep the house and the money. He leaned forward. But here's the thing, Valentina. I have evidence. I have the forensic analysis. I have bank records, and I have something else. He pulled out a small digital recorder and pressed play. My mother's voice filled the room, tinny but unmistakable. We can't let Valentina know about the money. If she finds out, she'll want it, and Lauren needs it more. Lauren's struggling. Valentina has a job. She'll be fine. Paul's voice responded. Mrs. Castillo, I'm ethically obligated to inform Valentina about the will. She doesn't need to know. She's been out of touch anyway. We haven't spoken to her in months. That's not what you told me last week. A pause. Then, look, Valentina is fine. She's always been fine. She doesn't need help. Lauren does. This is what Rose would have wanted if she'd known how much Lauren was struggling. Paul stopped the recording. I recorded that conversation because I had a feeling your mother wasn't being honest. I'm allowed to record in my own office under state law, and it's a good thing I did. I sat there, stunned. My mother's voice, so calm, so sure, rewriting reality to fit her narrative. She'd convinced herself that lying to me, stealing from me, was somehow the right thing to do. What do? I whispered. We go to court. We fight this, and we win. Paul's eyes were fierce. Your grandmother wanted you to have this, Valentina. She knew they'd try to take it. That's why she left me all this evidence. That's why she wrote you that letter. She was protecting you. I touched the locket around my neck. To my brave girl. When's the hearing? Next Friday, 10 a.m. I nodded slowly. I'll be there. Paul smiled for the first time. Good, because we're going to bury them. The week leading up to the hearing was a blur. I didn't answer any of the calls from my parents. I didn't respond to Lauren's texts, which had gone from angry to desperate to threatening. I just worked with Paul, going over documents, preparing testimony, building the case. And then Friday came. The courtroom was small, wood-paneled, with fluorescent lights that made everything look washed out. My parents sat on one side with their lawyer, a sharp-dressed man in his 40s who looked like he charged by the syllable. Lauren sat behind them, arms crossed, glaring at me. I sat with Paul on the other side. I wore a simple black dress and the locket. I wanted Grandma with me. The judge, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and no-nonsense eyes, called the courtroom to order. My parents' lawyer stood first. Your Honor, my clients are here today because they've been the victims of financial elder abuse and subsequent fraud. The defendant, Valentina Flores, manipulated her late grandmother into changing her will and then accessed the deceased's bank accounts without authorization. Objection. Paul stood. Those are serious accusations with zero evidence. I'll hear the evidence, the judge said. Continue. The lawyer presented the forged declination letter, claiming it proved I'd refused the inheritance initially, but then changed my mind when I realized how much money was involved. He presented fabricated bank statements, statements I'd never seen, showing withdrawals that supposedly matched deposits into my account. It was a coordinated attack. They'd planned this, built a paper trail designed to make me look guilty. When he finished, the judge turned to Paul. Counselor? Paul stood, and I saw the shift in his posture. This was a man who'd been waiting for this moment. Your Honor, I'd like to submit the original will, notarized and witnessed, clearly stating Mrs. Castillo's wishes. He handed the document to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. You'll note the date, 2 years and 3 months ago. Mrs. Castillo was very much of sound mind. I met with her personally multiple times. The judge examined it. Noted. I'd also like to submit this. Paul handed over the forensic analysis. This is a professional examination of the declination letter submitted by the plaintiffs. It conclusively proves that the signature is a forgery. It's not Valentina Flores's handwriting. The opposing lawyer stood. Your Honor, this is... I'll decide what it is, the judge said coolly. Sit down, Paul continued. I have bank records showing that Ms. Flores never accessed her grandmother's accounts. Not once. However, I do have records showing that the plaintiffs, Mr. and Mrs. Flores, made multiple large withdrawals from Mrs. Castillo's accounts in the months before her death. He submitted the printouts. My mother's face went pale. My father stared at his hands. And finally, Paul said, I have a recording of a conversation with Mrs. Flores, Valentina's mother, in which she admits to hiding the will from Valentina and justifies it by claiming Valentina doesn't need the money. He played the recording. My mother's voice filled the courtroom, calm and certain, explaining why it was okay to lie to me, why it was okay to erase Grandma's wishes. When it ended, the silence was deafening. The judge looked at my mother. Mrs. Flores, did you forge your daughter's signature on a legal document? My mother's lawyer whispered something to her. She cleared her throat. I may have signed on her behalf, but it was because she'd told me she didn't want... Did you or did you not forge her signature? I thought I was helping. Yes or no, Mrs. Flores? A long pause. Yes. The judge's expression hardened. Did you access your mother-in-law's bank accounts and withdraw funds without your daughter's knowledge or consent? Those funds were for Lauren, our other daughter. She needed... That's not what I asked. Another pause. Yes. The judge closed the folder in front of her. This case is dismissed with prejudice. Mrs. Flores, you are ordered to pay Ms. Valentina Flores's legal fees in the amount of... She glanced at Paul's filing. $15,000. Additionally, I'm issuing a restraining order. You, Mr. Flores, and Lauren Flores are not to contact Valentina for a period of 2 years. If you violate this order, you will be held in contempt. Lauren stood up. This is insane. She's lying. She's always been a liar. Sit down, the judge snapped. One more outburst and I'll hold you in contempt right now. Lauren sat, her face red with fury. The judge looked at me. Ms. Flores, the estate is yours. The house, the savings, all of it. I'm ordering the immediate reversal of the probate ruling. You are the rightful heir. I nodded, unable to speak. As for the home equity loan your parents took out, the judge continued, glancing at my parents. That's on them. They borrowed against a property they didn't own. They'll need to repay that loan or face foreclosure. That's not Ms. Flores' problem. Paul leaned over and whispered, We won. But it didn't feel like winning. It felt like standing in the ruins of something that was never really whole to begin with. My father finally looked at me. His eyes were wet. Valentina, please. We're your family. Don't do this. I stared at him. This man who'd sat silent while Lauren screamed at me, who'd watched me disappear and did nothing, who'd stolen from his own mother and then tried to frame me for it. You told me to disappear, I said quietly. I did. You called me selfish, but I was the only one giving. You said I ruined Lauren's life, but I was the one holding yours together. I stood up, my voice steady. Now? You can learn what it's like to stand on your own. I walked out of that courtroom and didn't look back. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my new office. Well, it's not really an office yet. It's a small studio space downtown with big windows and good light. The sign on the door says Brave Girl Creative in clean, simple letters. Grandma's locket rests against my collarbone, a constant reminder. I hired 2 young designers last month. both fresh out of school, both hungry and talented. We focus on nonprofits, especially organizations that help survivors of domestic abuse and family trauma. It's not the most lucrative niche, but it's the one that matters. The money from Grandma's estate gave me the freedom to build something meaningful, to create the kind of space I wish I'd had when I was 22 and desperate to prove I wasn't a burden. I sold the house on Maple Avenue. I couldn't live there, not after everything, but the sale paid off my parents' equity loan and left me with enough to invest in the business and put away a comfortable savings. My parents downsized to a small apartment across town. Lauren got a job at Target. She's a cashier. It's the first real job she's held in 5 years. I know this because I still have mutual friends on social media, people who keep me loosely updated even though I've blocked my family on every platform. Lauren posts sometimes, long victim narratives about how she was betrayed, how family means nothing anymore. Fewer and fewer people engage with those posts each time. I don't follow any of it closely. Their chaos isn't my story anymore. I keep the locket with me always. I had it cleaned and polished, and I added a new photo, one of me now, standing in front of my studio on opening day, smiling. On the other side is still the photo of Grandma, young and hopeful. And between us, engraved where only I can see it, are 3 words I had added. I am enough. Sometimes I think about what Grandma wrote in her letter. They're terrified of what happens when you finally let go. She was right. They built their lives on my willingness to give, to absorb, to stay silent, and when I stopped, everything collapsed. But that collapse wasn't my responsibility to prevent. It never was. Last week, I got an email from a woman named Sophia. She'd found my studio through a referral and wanted to talk about a project. When we met for coffee, she told me her story, how she'd spent 20 years being the caretaker in her family, how she'd finally walked away, how she was rebuilding. I saw your studio name, she said. Brave Girl Creative. It made me cry, because that's what it takes, isn't it? Bravery. I nodded. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. But you did it. Yeah, I did. We worked together on her nonprofit's branding, and when the project was done, she sent me a card that said simply, "Thank you for showing me it's possible." That's when I knew Grandma's gift wasn't just the money or the house. It was permission. Permission to choose myself. Permission to believe that I was worth protecting. Permission to walk away from people who only valued me for what I could give. I think about those 14 missed calls sometimes, the desperation in their voices when they realized I was serious. When they understood that the money was real, that the lawsuit was backfiring, that I wasn't coming back to fix things. I never did listen to all those voicemails. I deleted them. Because whatever they had to say, it doesn't matter anymore. They had years to see me, to hear me, to treat me like I was worth more than my utility. They chose not to. And now I've chosen me. If you've ever been gaslit by your family, told you're selfish for setting boundaries, called ungrateful for refusing to be a doormat, I want you to know something. You're not crazy. You're not the problem. You're not selfish for wanting peace. And if you've ever been the one holding everything together while being blamed for everything falling apart, I need you to hear this. You're allowed to let go. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to choose yourself. Comment below, "I chose peace." I'll read every one. I'll believe you. Because I know what it's like to be told you're the problem when you're actually the solution they're too afraid to lose. Subscribe if you want more stories about survival, not victimhood. About standing up, not shutting up. About finding your brave. I'll see you in the next one.